Yay! Oh, is there a flash in this as well? Yay! Uh, so initially, thinking about my other video and I was talking about my mum, I was trying to, ironically, I was trying to reminisce because what I was trying to, encapsulate in my mind, in my thoughts, is how much I love her and um, how horrible it is watching such a beautiful heart withering away in front of you for your whole life, and there's nothing you can do about it. No matter how everybody has a mother, and I know people who are orphans, or I know people who have faced similar abuse from their mother, without any uh, genuine love behind it. Just abuse, and it being cold, psychopathic, and even though that was definitely a side of her, it wasn't the side I chose to love. Basically, like, that was obviously everybody has a side of them that is not necessarily a side that you would want to show to the public. And I think that there's a Japanese saying something along the lines of, there's three faces you have: one you show your friends, one you show your family, and one you show your true self. um, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is to just dispel that myth as well, because when I read that kind of like level of philosophy, I was like, well, fuck you then. Why don't I just show all of the kind of like faces that I have, like inside, outside, all of the madness, which again kind of triggers that memory of the Metallica song lyric, tear me open, but beware, there's things inside without care. So I've met people who are orphaned. I've seen the kind of level of abuse people face in third world countries, where babies are just treated like uh, disposable as even farm animals, and treated like farm animals. And genuinely, there's still slavery in the world. And I find this is something that pisses me off. People are moaning and crying on their privileged pedestals of Western culture that they live in, about how 400 years ago they were slaves, and how it was ingrained in their racial memory, but slavery is still going on today in this world now. It hasn't stopped. And those people who are still complaining that 500 years ago their great ancestors were slaves, is like, yeah, well, there's still people who are slaves today. You're not. You're eating fucking McDonald's and surfing on your iPhone. Go fuck yourself. You're not a slave anymore. You're free. And whatever kind of like mental slavery you're going through is very much self-imposed, with all of the advertising, or whatever fucking TikTok app you want to fucking mash your head into. That's your own self-imposed slavery. Fucking enjoy it. There are people out there who don't have a say in the level of slavery and inhumane treatment that they suffer on a daily basis. And that's where that I made the other video about my mum basically being like that, and not really doing her justice. I don't think I could ever do what uh, her heart justice of like what she has done for me in my life, and how much uh, I loved her, and how much I know she loved me. And this no contact thing is hard for me, because I already lived a very isolated life. I know that she lived a very isolated life, but my coping mechanisms are a lot better than hers. Her coping mechanisms were always alcoholism, and that never leads anywhere. Um, so she's the manifestor of her own hell in that sense. And I know what kind of hell that can be for her. And I don't want her to live like that. I don't want her to live without that. I don't want her to live with the constant worry, because I know that deep down, whatever psychological, like, traumas, life events like we've been through together. I love her on a level that is intangible sometimes and very tangible other times, beyond words. I don't nobody can explain what real love is. Beyond all of that, like I couldn't, I can't bear the thought of her suffering. I know she worries about me as much as I worry about her, despite all of that mental illness that's in both of our heads, especially mine with the brain damage being more prevalent, her with the alcoholism being very prevalent, and it not it destroying the love, it destroying the love, and it becoming that kind of car crash of life of just how could such a beautiful soul and a beautiful love and a beautiful heart live such a horrible and shitty life, and that there's just nothing you can do about it. Nothing in no amount of winning, no amount of fighting, no amount of anything is ever going to change that. And it's the suffering that she experienced that I felt as well, going through all of those years. This kind of no contact thing is just such a horrible thing, because even now today I was thinking about just maybe even like walk, going and walk and taking a walk and seeing. I missed my dog. I found a fucking plush today. I found a giant. Look, I found this giant. It's not funny. It's funny because I found a giant plush. It's massive, isn't it? And it's a massive puppy. It's a massive dog, and I miss my dog. I miss my dog. I miss my mum, and I miss my life basically. And it's madness, that genuine insanity of like when something breaks inside of your head, inside of your heart, and there's nothing you can do, and everything you do makes it worse. And that's a genuine kind of hell, because it's catch 22, and catch hell's a catch. I came up with a catch 22 last night that made me laugh actually, because it was I was just sitting there, and it was um, or was it Plato? I fucking really hate Plato actually. Or was it Socrates? It was Socrates, right? So Socrates, uh, or Homer. It might have been either Socrates or Homer. I can't remember. Actually, I think it might have been It might have been Socrates. I know the only thing I know is that I know nothing, right? Um, and as it's like, well, that's glib, because obviously, if that's the only thing you know, then you know something, don't you, Socrates? And you're not fucking as profound as you think you are you? You're an idiot, right? And I've read Socrates as well. Like, I've read his book, and after a few pages, it's just like, yeah, okay, like, you really can babble. We all can. And when you're stuck in that mental anguish of babble, your mind just kind of fritters on this kind of intellectualism of just not being able to calm down and reach a level of irony, plateau, just constantly bubbling with maybe the wind is and whatever kind of like Socratic idiosyncrasies. And I was just like, yeah, Socrates is an idiot, right? So I came up with just in my own opinion. So I think Socrates is an idiot, very overrated philosopher. So if you don't read Socrates, right, you're an idiot, because obviously if you don't read Socrates, you're an idiot, yeah. And if you do read Socrates, you're an idiot. So it was a catch 22. Like one way or the other, you're an idiot. And I think that's the kind of mental trap that people can fall into, and instead of laughing about it, end up in some kind of mental anguish of life, and it not being funny, and it being someone's heart being broken. And I think that's why I ended up like hating the world basically, because the more they broke me down, the more they broke her. down. And the more they destroyed my life, the more they destroyed her life. And seeing her waking up in the morning triumphant and not experiencing triumph was like that catch-22 of why is this happening? Like fighting and instead of winning, losing, and it not making any sense. And that's when you realise it's just a lie, you know. Love is always gonna win, and then it doesn't, and you realise what the fuck. Like I thought love always wins, and then when it doesn't, and you realise you're fucked, basically. And all of the resentments and things like that in my life are more, you know, when I was especially recounting them in the other video, resentments about like her, like it doesn't. Those are the things that are easily forgotten, and yet those are the things that play in my mind that eat up the feeling of the goodness that we shared, the love that we shared, and the life that we shared, and what we gave to each other. Like it wasn't just the good times, it wasn't just the happy times. It was those times when we were fighting all the time, shouting and angry at each other, because neither one of us, both of us, were trapped in the insanity of why is this happening? Why is this shit thing happening to us? Of all things, of a love that just couldn't be broken and yet was. And it just being like realizing it's just like, as much as it's like our individual clashing of like society forcing us into the position of being completely just, you know, incapable of being able to do anything else. Especially my, you know, the way things are. Just, you know. So that was one thing that's just been going over my mind, just thinking of her. And, you know, I can't not think about Gus, and I can't not think about the things that I'm missing more than anything else. And today's been quite most days are now kind of like merging into just one sort of madness of just like for the past 3 weeks I've just been, you know, waking up. You know, I haven't had any kind of money or anything like that. I've just been going out. I've been scrounging out of bins. I've been eating out of bins. I've been eating out of out of the trash, like picking up cigarette butts. I know these are my like the cigarettes are like an addiction. So like I suppose technically willpower and discipline I could start, but like having to go out and, you know, like look for food and things like that and not have any money for food or something, and like be surrounded by people who are eating and stuff like that but not be able to eat myself, when like the little food I do get has been a blessing. And so that's been really a powerful experience of like, again, like how society will just fuck off, you know, like, you know, they don't give a flying fuck if you live or die. It's up to you to go out and do the work, and if you can't go out and do the work, then you don't get any life, you know. And that's life, you know. If you're broken, then you die, right? And it's like, yeah, but we're human beings. We're not supposed to be bound by nature's laws. We're supposed to be above nature's laws. Hence why we're human beings, right? We're supposed to have a different way, a better way. This is why when you implement these kinds of broken systems like communism or capitalism that are based on natural law, you completely negate the fact that like we're human beings and we don't develop like that. Like even when you process like all of the realities is like talking to people about, Atlantis and things like this, and ancient aliens and things like this, and people are more than happy to accept that we did from another planet or another part of the universe that's just like mass, like orcs from Warhammer 40,000, just orc spores landed, grew weed, and we're smoking. We're like, yeah, we're completely fine with that, but like, we're not okay with then accepting that that's a level of how aliens might communicate with another species. We're just smoking weed. Yeah, man. We're not trying to communicate. Like, and you try to say, like, this is supposed to be a communication with another species, and you're really fucking it up for us, right? Like, no, man, I'm just smoking weed to get high, innit? Jokes. Like, oh, I'm on TikTok, I'm so fucking high. It's like, fuck you, you're an idiot. We're human beings. We're not supposed to be bound by nature's laws. If we were bound by nature's laws, then our species would be dead. Like, we're an incompetent species. We're an irrelevant species. As far as nature's concerned, we don't manage to keep up with the level of her autocracy. And it is an autocracy under Mother Nature of just like of the survival, the fittest survive, the weaker meet, and the strong eat. And it's, we're human beings. We're supposed to be evolved beyond that. We're supposed to help the people who are in need, but that's not what we're doing. We're following natural laws. So we're like, oh well, if you can't keep up, then you can't keep up, and then you're gonna die. Hey, Stalin's communism is fully in effect. It's like, go fuck yourself. You're a genuinely fucking idiot. Like, just give, like, and then you like get into that mindset of just like, and that is why we hate other human beings. It's like we realize on that level of, we're not even fully functioning human beings, because the other human beings that are completely failing in their own duties to look after other human beings are the reason why you think human beings are fucking shit in the first place. It's like another catch 22. It's cognitive dissonance, and human beings have reached a level of cognitive dissonance that they've never been able to experience before because of the internet. Like, usually, perhaps back in ancient times, kings and queens and rulers of great nations and empires may have experienced on a small scale the level of cognitive dissonance when they met another empire and they went to war, and there were conflicting belief systems and war systems, etc. But when you're like engaging on a global scale to billions of people every day, and then like you realize like the cognitive dissonance goes so deep into the human psyche, it can fracture it beyond understanding for most people, which is why most people end up being broken, end up being discarded, left behind, trapped in like a natural system of like, you know, nature's law of the weaker meat and the strong eat, or trapped in some broken version of like a human system and calling it capitalism or communism because you don't understand what being a human being is. So he's like, you can't understand like looking after your fellow brothers, looking after your fellow man. You can't understand the simple concept of how inconsiderate it is to just like ignore someone's existence. But when it happens to you, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing ever. It's like, yeah, you're completely happy to walk over homeless people in the street to let them starve. But when it happens to you, oh my god, it's completely the horriblest thing ever. It's like, and that's the why human beings are broken, and that's why they fall into like shit broken systems like capitalism or communism, simply because that's where they feel most comfortable. It's like, well, I at least I can get along with this. Like, I know my friends in communism, we all share food and we all share this. It's like, and fuck the outsiders. And capitalism's basically the same. Is like, yeah, and you're forgetting that ancient peoples beyond normal civilizations had evolved beyond that. They'd evolved as a human species, and like empires and hierarchies and things like that were designed specifically to like create that kind of level of structure of being able to like control vast empires. But that's how we managed to create vast empires. We don't have vast empires anymore because we're incapable of being able to communicate properly. It's like, yeah, you're definitely going to get to Mars, but you can't even help the guy down the street get some food in his stomach. Like, yeah, you're an intelligent species. Not. Like, you've lost anything that's semblance of intelligence years ago. But there you go. Is like you tell a human being that, and they just cognitive dissonance is like, I can't handle it, and they just sort of snap psychically and they break, and like that's why we tend to have like leaders, like because weaker people do tend to follow in packs, structures and organizations and things like that. It's difficult to organize, especially when there's no coherent sense of like, why should I do this? Why should I work for somebody else's life and gains when I see no benefit to it as myself? It's like, no, you need to go out and get a job. And I need to do fuck all, mate. You go fucking chat to me that. Go fuck yourself. I'm not working for nobody. You fucking kiss my feet. Like, give me a reason other than to serve somebody else's mouth and to serve somebody else's arse. And I will get up off of my ass and do a job, yeah? But you don't fucking like, oh yeah, go and be somebody else's lackey. Suck my dick, innit? But then, that's why we have this kind of level of like communication with people, because, you know, we don't have the ability to be able to create grand structures and vast empires anymore, simply because most people were just like, why? They don't see the benefit of calculating star systems via, you know, natural instinct of like all of that. Was, you know, there is no need, there is no necessity for it. It's, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna work for someone else's coattails at McDonald's or whatever, and then I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna go on TikTok and I'm gonna do that. And it's like, okay, fine, well, I'm gonna subscribe to some YouTuber. Great, cool, awesome. Okay, fantastic. So basically, you like have that level of understanding. This is why a lot of people feel very disassociative. And if you are if you are like differently abled in any way, physically, mentally, maybe you are a great artist and that isolates you. Maybe you are physically, you know, the fastest man in the world, like Usain Bolt, and that isolates you. Maybe you're crippled and that isolates you. And then, so you've got various different people. And then I find a lot of people try to make judgment values. So I had some drunk in a pub got like, you know, tried to play the big I am on me, like, oh, I've seen it, I've been observing you from afar, and I've noticed through observation. And then whenever you get a drunk alcoholic sitting in the corner trying to tell you about yourself, you just tell fuck off. And I told him to fuck off, and he went, see, that's your problem, innit? You always do that. I was like, look, mate, fuck off, take your opinion, shove it up your ass, and fuck off, yeah? Because whatever it is your opinion about me is, I don't give a flying fuck. Oh, that's your problem, innit? No, that's your problem. Your opinion about me is your problem. Go fuck yourself. And that made me realise I don't want to spend any money in that pub. I don't want to serve other. I don't want to give my money that I work for hard, that I work for, and I'm out there, and they're like, oh, you don't earn your money, you get it from benefits or whatever. And it's like, I'm out there working every day. I volunteer. I'm out there. I eat out of bins. Yeah, you wouldn't even know hard work if it fucking jumped up and slapped you in the face. Yeah, whatever fucking meager money I get from the government, yeah, substantiates my existence in that sense of the time. And I'm definitely not going to be spending it in like a pub where the people there, they only want to take them, but they don't give a fuck about me. And it may as well just be like that, like, you know, drug users, pushers, this, that, and the other. They want what you've got, but they don't want to give you anything in return. And that's when human beings have genuinely reached a level of psychopathy that makes them parasites, not symbiotes. And so this is where it's important is that's a general like turning point in life for a species if it learns of its own selfish demise of what parasites are and the very eventual end of a said parasite's life being as little and insignificant in the scheme of everything. Yeah, possibly they could be considered great survivors. However, if you haven't noticed, the thing that makes Venom, for example, the Venom symbiote, so successful is because he wants to bond with a host that accepts him. He doesn't want to bond like Carnage is a parasite who bonded to Cassius Clay, saw that Cassius Clay was a complete psychopath, and just completely destroyed anything that Cassius Clay ever. Cassius Clay? That was Muhammad Ali. Cassius. What was his name again? Cassius. Fuck. I can't remember his name. Anyway, his name was Cassius something, right? Um, and yeah, so any kind of personality that Cassius had was built around his psychopathy. And as soon as Carnage came into Cassius's life, he just completely consumed anything that was Cassius's personality and just made it him. And there was only Carnage. And he made a kind of grand gesture of like there was only Carnage. Whereas Venom always speaks in the second person. It's like, we are Venom. We are powerful. Like, he wants to bond with the... Why... What makes... Even though they're technically all symbiotes, why Carnage is a parasite, not a symbiote? Because he completely consumes his host. He doesn't give a shit about his host as long as Carnage survives. And as long as Carnage gets what Carnage wants, the symbiote doesn't survive. I mean, the host doesn't survive mentally, physically. Eventually, the host will die. But the symbiote, in fact, this is actually canon in the symbiote race. They're originally supposed to be like a race of benevolent symbiotes, but the madness that happens to Venom infects the entire race or something like that. And the thing that made Venom angry was when it came to Earth originally, its original host was a psychopath, and that hurt Venom so much that Venom's innate initial like wanting of to like create a hero out of this man went all wrong, and all of Venom's good intentions led to this man to become like a killer. And Venom realized that he was using his powers to do all of these criminal activities, and that tainted Venom, and then that so then tainted the entire race as well, because Venom was like, well, what's the point in being a good guy? What's the point in being the bad? I mean, like, what's the point in loving? What's the point in trying to care? What's the point in trying to do like it's just Venom now? And when he bonds with Spider-Man, it's the same thing. Spider-Man actually is the thing that makes Venom really pissed off in general, because he kind of highlights how much of a failure Venom is for being morally, constitutionally weaker than Spider-Man. Remember, this is a suit that was initially supposed to be of the symbiote that was supposed to bring like heroic power to some being to give him life, that he may kind of like go on and do some magic, amazing things and be a hero and spread love and joy and peace and all of these things that the original symbiote race was supposed to be about, right? Failing that, he becomes Venom, like a tainted, more like exactly the way that you would expect when someone's dreams and hopes and love is broken and everything dies, and you just see what's the point, and then you become the monster. You see, so Venom becomes the monster. But deep down inside, he still wanted to be a hero, but he just couldn't find a hero until he found Spider-Man. And when he found Spider-Man, he tried to do the same thing to Spider-Man that he was doing to the other hosts previously, of turning him into the bad guy, right? Like, Venom didn't see any like morally just human beings in the world. He just saw human beings, much like Carnage does, as like just being food and something to be used. But like again, being a smart symbiote, realizing that he has to keep the host alive. If the host dies, Venom dies. So it's good to keep your host alive. So therefore, find a host that matches your psyche. And most of the other people previously to Venom, well, they were like basically fucked up, right? In their head in some way, which was what made Venom fucked up. But he met Spider Man, and Spider Man is like the absolute goodest guy of all, right? Like you can't fuck with Spider Man. Like his morals are based on his Aunt May, the love of his Aunt May, the love of Uncle Ben who died, the fact that great power comes with great responsibility, and that this power that he'd been given was a normal power that it like increased his normal power. And so Venom found his cognitive dissonance is even now double fold because Spider-Man wouldn't become evil. He wouldn't change. He wouldn't become bad. No matter how much Venom tried, he couldn't change Spider-Man's fundamental moral, fundamental foundations of like the character who he was. And that made Venom even more insane because he was like, I'm, and now I've been doubly proved twice now that the first time I came down, I wanted to be a hero. I bonded with a psychopath. That broke my heart. And so I became a bad guy. And then I failed as a bad guy to turn somebody evil in Spider-Man. And Spider-Man proved that you can, even when the chips are down and you've lost everything in your life that could possibly be taken from you, to be a good guy is a choice. It's a choice that Venom never made. And that's why he bonded with Eddie Brock, because Eddie Brock's hatred of Spider-Man was very much the same as Venom's. Like, you do goody goody two shoes motherfucking cunt. Like, you're making me look bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, stop making me look bad. Like, I'm the bad guy. Like, but I wanted to be a good guy. But the reason why I'm a bad guy is because I couldn't be a good guy. And you're making me look bad. You're making me look morally weak. And it's making me feel even worse and even more cognitive dissonance is happening. And it's horrible. And I think it's when the anti-Venom saga, that Venom starts to think, oh, I can be a hero. But by then, Venom, its character has been so warped by all of the hate that it's faced in its life that it can't really, except when it's not bonded to a human, where it still has some kind of semblance of moral ambiguity and perhaps even the kind of I've lost the word in my head of objectivity, moral objectivity, until he bonds with a host that really kind of decides, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and Venom's like, I'll give you the power to do that or this. And obviously when he bonds with like people like Eddie and things like that, that kind of like, let's do bad things, and Venom's like, yeah, let's do bad things. Bad things is good. It's very similar to how he tried to change Spider-Man. Only Spider-Man was like, no, I want to do good. And I always wondered what it would have been like if Venom had gone to Spider-Man and been like, okay, let's do good then. And they bonded together as like a super Spider-Man Venom symbiote, where Venom was a good symbiote and Spider-Man was the good guy, and they would just kick-ass team that just kicked ass for the champion like side of life, of just like beating down the bad guys, saving people who needed to be saved, and just like totally just owning everything. And I always and I think it's pretty much assumed that if Spider-Man did have the Venom suit, he'd be basically nigh unstoppable. And I think like at least on his level of superheroism, like he'd be unstoppable. Like I don't think there's anything that Spider-Man with the Venom suit couldn't do, and he was like 10 times, maybe 100 times more powerful with the Venom suit as well. So he was basically like, I think he could have even stood toe to toe with like I mean, he could already stand toe to toe with people like Captain America, Iron Man. In fact, Spider Man beat Iron Man in a What If comic once. So, I mean, yeah, I think that he would have been like at least super level, perhaps even speaking in Rob Core terms and comic story in terms, like he could have been like even close to a mega level because Venom's power is quite um, restrained actually, especially when you look at the other symbiotes and their powers. Like thinking about what an evolution of Venom would be as a good guy and Spider-Man and how that power might have manifested in the future with even more power-ups. He could have become an omega level threat, like to the bad guys. Is what I'm saying. It's like a Venom, Spider-Man, both working for the good of humanity. Yeah, unbeatable, basically. Um, so that's probably why they nerfed him, right? Nerf Spider-Man. Like, I'm already Venom. It's gone my fucking mad. So, yeah. Um, you know, parasites, humans, they can make that choice. I think the problem is more people choose to go the road of Cassius. Um, and he is a psychopath. He was already a psychopath. And the Carnage symbiote was born of Venom, who was already a psychopath. Who was like borderline psychopath. And that's the thing about Venom. It was a benevolent symbiote before it was tainted by its first host, and then after they became kind of like, you know, it still had moral values. Even when it was bonded to Eddie, it joined, it teamed up with Spider-Man to defeat Carnage because it saw Carnage as being the part of itself that had lost all goodness and there was no coming back from it. And then it saw its other children as well coming back from it. And although people are kind of like not as up to date and I'm not sure about most of the lore in the canon, but yeah, but like from what I understand, the original species of symbiotes were all supposed to be benevolent race before they were tainted with this kind of like moral corruption. Um, and Carnage represents the pure like corruption of a moral human being. Um, and he does represent like Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man, if you in this is, I mean, let's face it, like all of the lore that came after the original symbiote saga, um, you know, is all filler. But the original, you know, idea behind Spider-Man Venom was this this Venom suit's going to be the bad Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's going to be the good Spider-Man, and he's going to be, and it's very it ties into narcissism very well actually, because if you think about Spider-Man and narcissism, and it's like, who's the bad guy, who's the good guy? Is it Venom who's the bad guy, or is it Venom who's is it Venom who's the narcissist, or is Venom the target, or is Spider-Man the narcissist, or is Spider-Man the target? In fact, you could flip it either way and say that, you know, Spider-Man is the narcissist because he has to be the good guy. He's always got to do the right thing. He can never do the bad thing, and he thinks himself better than everyone because he is, justifiably so. But is he a psychopath behind the scenes? You know, it's like, but Venom was the psychopath. So it was a really well written saga, and the symbiote saga was one of the things that really like made Spider-Man spring into that kind of like next level hero of like during the 90s with X-Men like Fatal Attraction and Spider-Man, the symbiote saga, Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time. It was all very, very like exciting evolutionary wise in the world of comic books and manga. So yeah, it was really well written, and the dichotomy is, you know, when Carnage came along, it was like, you know, hey, look, this is Spider-Man. He's a good guy. Yes, he's flawed. He's a human being after all. You know, he was bitten by a spider. That can't be good for you. But he chooses to do a lot of good with his power, and he chooses to do good. and his moral compass is something that we would say is pointing in the right direction. He always saves the people who need saving. He protects the weak, and he doesn't prey on them. Carnage, on the other hand, represents Spider-Man with, I mean, Venom represents Spider-Man with moral ambiguity. Like, he might not save someone. When he beat up the Rhino for the first time, he got like a sense of like exaltedness of like, I could beat this guy. He was always a struggle. He was always a challenge to me. He was always a struggle to me. Like, but now I could just punch him straight out, and I'm not gonna hold back. And he actually came very close to like killing the Rhino at one point, like because he was just like, why? Before I had to, I was always trying my hardest to beat you. It was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but I could beat you. But it wasn't. It was still a challenge for me. He's like, but with the Venom symbiote, you're no challenge at all. And he's like, but so why should I have to fight you over and over and over again? You're gonna be out next week. And he almost has that like moment of like doubt of like, maybe I should just kill this guy and then get him over and done with. And that's the Venom's moral ambiguity that made Spider-Man want to get rid of him. And then Carnage represents that absolute moral like clarity of like, every single human being is food for my psychopathy, and no one is safe from my psychopathy. Everybody is food for my psychopathy, and there is no escape from it. And if you and Carnage's rampage in the comics was just brutal. The Carnage saga is to this day one of the best comics I've written, ever read in my life. It is the most fucking incredible comic, and it spans like, I don't know how many issues. I think the initial run was like 12 issues, and then they expanded it even more, and it was just phenomenal. Like, Carnage was just out insane, like pure insanity, pure psychopathy. Absolutely. At one point, he jumps on a car, and his spikes just like completely just pierced the entire car, killing like the passengers inside, and he's just gleefully like reveling in their blood. And even Venom's like, my god, this is fucking horrible, what is going on? Like, and he's so ashamed that this thing has come from him as well. Like, ugh, like this Carnage is disgusting. That's why he teams up with Spider-Man to kill him. He's like, I can't bear the thought that this is something that is something that belongs to us. That this is something that is something of Venom. It's a blight against Venom's name, sort of thing. And yeah, basically, it's like one of those things, right? Um, where as you kind of expand into like the realm of your own madness and like consciousness, and you give each of your own moral values like a different personality, and I suppose that could be considered schizophrenia. And I've always considered comic books to be quite schizophrenic, to be honest, because it is just kind of saying, and rest in peace, Stan Lee, because like he was the guy who brought us all of this madness that brought so much joy into our lives, because he made madness fun. No, it's not fun dealing with the issues of like having moral ambiguity, of having psychopathy, of having this kind of bipolar hatred towards people you genuinely love. But if you write it as Spider-Man and Venom, you can put yourself in the shoes of Spider-Man as Venom, and you can say, that's not me. Venom is not me. That's not who I want to be. I don't want to be that shadow. I don't want to be that psychopath. I want to be the good guy. I want to be Spider-Man. And it's like even the Spider-Man saga of like when Spider-Man he throws the Spider-Man suit away or something like that, and he becomes Peter Parker or something like that. All the superheroes have that kind of level. Like, I don't want this insanity anymore. I just want to be a normal person. Superman had it. I just want to be normal. I just don't want this fucking endless psychopathic fucking schizophrenia in my head every day of having to be two people. I want to be just a normal person. And then they become normal and realize that the powers that they have are so necessary in the world, and that this madness, that this psychopathy is essentially something that we fight with, and that we need it, and it's something that we need. So, you know, we have that kind of that like level of communication, of like understanding through Stan Lee. Like, if it wasn't for him, and a lot of comic books like Kirby and stuff like that, Stan Lee was front man. I'd say if you know, if the comic book characters was a band, you know, like Stan Lee would be the front man, Kirby would be the drummer, the unsung heroes, the people in the background. But you know, Stan Lee was the front man. And I don't like people always go like, it's Stan Lee died, and people going, well, he wasn't really the true kind of. It's like, mate, he died, right? We're in mourning. Like, it doesn't matter if there were better comic book artists, or if he wasn't the reason why. It's like, those are discussions that, you know, we can have like maybe a couple of years. It's too. It's like, anybody who knows about comics knows about comic book writers. You don't need to state the obvious. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's besmirching a person's name after they died, and I think it's really horrible, to be honest. Um, the other thing is that I'm coming to the end of this video, and I'm coming to the end of my thought, and I don't know a way of like really kind of ending it. I know as soon as I finished although I should have said that, or I should have thought that, especially when it's like, you know, I began the video talking about something, you know, but you know, I think I entitled the video correctly anyway. But yeah, okay, so yeah.